For victims and villains, my name is Josh. Welcome to the podcast feed. This has been kind of just a place where we're putting live content at this point. If you guys are new to the victims and villains name, we are a multimedia nonprofit that creates content. We host events to talk about mental health through pop culture. And I'm so glad that you decided to hit play and join us for the special episode of Creature Feature Weekend 2024. Now, in a little bit, you guys are going to get to hear 3 interviews that we did at the convention on the floor. But first off, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the movies that I got a chance to see. So, for those of you guys that do or do not know, Creature Feature Weekend is held once a year in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, and it is a amalgamation between a film festival that showcases not only classic horror but also new up and coming voices within the genre as well. And on the flip side of that, they also have a horror convention where they host celebrities, horror crafters, vendors, movie distributors, etc., etc. It's a great time. Click the links in the show notes below to check out more information about Creature Feature Weekend. They're typically now are holding this in the spring. Victims and Villains has been blessed to be a part of Creature Feature Weekend since its inception a few years ago. And if you guys want to check out back episodes, please go check them out. We've had guests from those conventions come out, crossover, and work with us to be podcast guests, host, talk about their new projects, etc. But I want to jump into this episode talking about a little 80s film called The Mutilator. Now, The Mutilator is a cult classic film at this point. It is celebrating 40 years this year, and I was lucky enough to get to see The Mutilator on the big screen for its 40th year anniversary. So I'm actually going to kick this episode off with a little bit of a retrospective piece on The Mutilator. By this point, you can pretty much catch The Mutilator on a number of different streaming services, including Tubi, Pluto, etc., and a lot of the paid-for services as well. If you don't know what The Mutilator is, essentially it is a B-movie slasher from 1984 and tells the story of a group of friends that go to shut down a lake house at the end of the summer season and are slowly picked off one by one. Now, I've seen this movie only once before, and I don't know if I was just not having a great day or if I just didn't essentially get it. I needed to see this movie with an audience. I didn't like this movie the first time I saw it, and seeing it now in a second time with an audience after meeting some of the cast and crew, which you guys will get to hear later on in this episode, I really dug this. I thought that it's a pretty straightforward 80s slasher, but it has a lot of awesome gags and it has a lot of just memorable, really goofy characters. And it's just a really fun time. It's not deep, it doesn't have any great character development or break down any new walls. It's just a fun time. And I don't know if I initially went into this movie the first time I saw it expecting something profound and deep and looking for something really artistic. This is just a example of just a really fun 80s slasher that I think is worth putting in the same conversation that, films like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, Slumber Party Massacre, a lot of these really goofy, just really campy, but still really fun times. This, I think, deserves to be in the conversation for it. And I was really fortunate enough to get to see it and just have a newfound appreciation for this. So I think originally when I rated this on Letterboxd, I went to a 1 out of 5. I'm bumping this bad boy up to a 3 out of 5. I had a blast with this. Just a really really fun time, and it stands on its own really well. But it brings us to our next film, which is The Mutilator 2, which is the movie that they were promoting this weekend at Creature Feature Weekend. Mutilator 2, it takes place 40 years after the original. The new one is remaking the Mutilator quote unquote movie in its own universe. It's essentially a movie within a movie. It's very meta, but during the rap party, a lot of the events of the original film, art imitates life, and so on and so forth. So Buddy Cooper returns to write and direct this one, and I have to say, I absolutely adored this film from start to finish. It is very meta, and I am a sucker for a meta movie, but also, other than that, this movie is just downright freaking hysterical. I cannot remember the last time that I have laughed at a horror comedy this much. And not only that, but talked about this in the past before. My issue with the subgenre and the amalgamation of a horror comedy is that it seems like it's too heavy on the comedy, not not enough on the horror, and vice versa. With this one, I think the reason this works so well is that there are so many laugh out loud moments, but they are balanced perfectly with all of the gags. And this one really doubles down on the horror elements of it with the slashers. There's a lot of creative deaths in here, and just getting to kind of see who was going to die and how they were going to die next really made me appreciate this movie more. This movie is a brisk like 80 minutes, and honestly, I wanted 15 minutes more. There's a lot that I really loved about this movie. Starting off with the cast, I think the cast is top notch. This cast is an ensemble cast bringing together a brand new crew that is remaking this quote unquote in universe reboot of the original film. Then you also match that with the cast of the original 1984 film. And I love the way that they juxtapose one another, the way that the old and the new mesh. It's really not every day that you find something that works in the way that this one does. And typically, when it comes to ensembles, what you find is if it's a quote unquote legacy sequel, it focuses too much on the legacy and not enough on the new blood. And this one really balances itself out really well. There are several moments in this movie that, with the deaths in this, that really made me squeamish and really pushed uh, my boundary as a viewer. And I always really appreciate that because there's a great entertainment value in that, but also at the same time, it is a level of practicality that comes with that, that you really allow the medium of practical effects to really elevate what you're watching as a viewer. And I think The Mutilator 2 is a great example of that. This film feels like it's a modern film because of the comedy, because of the gags, but it has that throwback vibe to it because of some of the cast and because of some of the practical effects elements and how they're utilized. And I got to see this on its East Coast premiere. It's currently going to try and peruse to some of the festivals across the world. If you get a chance to see The Mutilator 2, I cannot recommend this movie enough. I'm giving it a 4 out of 5. I think this will go down as potentially one of my favorite films of the year. Maybe not like all genres, but definitely the horror genre. This movie is an absolute blast. We're going to take a quick commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to jump into our live coverage of this year's Creature Feature.
If you or someone you know is listening to this podcast right now and you're struggling with suicide, addiction, self-harm, or depression, we encourage you guys to please reach out. This is the heartbeat of why we do what we do. Suicide is currently the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, and as of this recording, there are 132 suicides that take place each and every day on American soil. And when you scale back internationally, there are 800,000 successful suicides. That is one death roughly every 40 seconds. So if you or someone you know is struggling, you guys can go to victimsandvillains.net/hope. That resource is going to be right in the description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this. There you'll find resources that include the National Suicide Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-8255. You can also text HELP to 741-741. We also have a plethora of other resources, including churches, getting connected with counselors, LGBT resources like the Trevor Project, and also veteran hotline as well. Please, if you hear nothing else in this show, understand that you listening to this right now, have value and worth. We get it. Suicide, depression, mental health, these are hard topics, and the stigma around them doesn't make it any easier. But please consider the resources right in the descriptions below, wherever you guys are listening, because once again, you have value and you have worth. So please stay with us. I am now here with Buddy Cooper. He is the director on the cult classic slasher film, The Mutilator, and now The Mutilator 2. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. I hope you are.
I am also well. So I got to ask, before we talk about the sequel, how does it feel to have the cult classic following around a film like The Mutilator?
Well, it feels good. I don't know how else. It doesn't feel bad. It was, through the years, it has grown in popularity. More people know about it. When we first made it, none of us had any idea that it was going to have this kind of staying power. It was a lot of fun for us. All the people who worked on it, we had a good time, cast and crew, and everybody stayed in touch. And we're all delighted that a lot more people like it. It's around, yeah.
So The Mutilator has been around for 40 some odd years. And we're in this era now of horror where legacy sequels are the hot ticket item. So what made you want to make a sequel after so long?
Well, we wanted to make a sequel from the very beginning. We were kicking around ideas before the shoot of the first one was over. But things got in the way. Money was a problem. It took a while to get my money back from the first one. Then I had children going to college, and I was practicing law, which took a lot of time. And just one thing after another. My father died, and my sisters and elderly mother asked me to take over the oversight of the family business. There went another 20 years. And finally, we just reached a point where it was either do it or don't do it. Quit thinking about it. It was time to do it. It wasn't something that just occurred to me a couple of years ago. No, it's been thinking about it for a long time.
Well, I haven't seen it yet. I'm really excited to. I really enjoyed the first Mutilator. For fans of the first Mutilator, what can we expect with the sequel? How does it tie into the original?
The setup is that there is a remake being made of the original. Which afforded the opportunity to invite some of the cast from the original back. It's the last day of the shoot on this film within the film, and there's a rap party that night, and so that some of Ruth Martinez and Bill Hitchcock have returned to come to the rap party. We can expect, aside from that, we can expect much of the same that was in the first one. First one was made for the gore fans, and this one is also made for the gore fans. Practical effects. I don't know what to say. I can't say too much without giving it away. You know?
With this one, in terms of having the original cast returning, what was that like for you as a storyteller to kind of get to work with these people again?
Oh, it was rewarding, but these are not people that I haven't seen in 40 years. Bill lives near me, and Ruthie's in North Carolina in the state. We've been in touch throughout the last 40 years. We've been to horror festivals. We've been festivals where the Mutilator was shown, and Bill and Ruthie almost always went to attend. Jack Chatham came to a lot of them. We started pre-production on Mutilator 2 before the pandemic, and Jack was on board, but the pandemic came, set us back a few more years, and Jack's 96 now, and he said he just can't do it. But he did want to come down and watch the shoot, so he did come down one day. We were shooting a scene in a breakfast scene in a restaurant at the Oceanana Pier, and Jack came in and sat over there, and there's a shot in the movie. I said, Jack, if you come down, we're going to put you in the movie. He's sitting in a booth looking at the menu, and he's in there for us. Just a shot of Jack. So it's good. We've been in touch with Jack through all the years too. All the other actors too. Well, Ben Moore died, Connie Rogers died, Maury Lampley died, but the rest of us we're on each other's contact lists, email lists. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see it, and one of the things that I'm fascinated about cult classics is how they have like a life of their own after their initial release, and some of that plays into them being comfort films and or like, mental health safe spaces. So having something like The Mutilator being that for some individuals, how does that feel as an artist?
I've never thought of The Mutilator as creating a comfort zone for anybody. I'm delighted to learn that it is, though. I'm concerned. I often wonder about what effect the violence in movies has on violence in real life, and we try to make it clear that our movies are like comic books. They're not real. Don't think we're actually taking somebody's head off. That doesn't work that way. And we make that plain during the thing, and particularly in the end credits when we show everybody's okay. If people find solace in my pictures, I'm glad to hear it. And more power to them.
With this, also, two more questions for you. This one, we are showing The Mutilator 2 here at Creature Feature this weekend. And what are the plans kind of post that?
Well, we are searching for distribution. We've got a couple offers. We're thinking about them, talking to lawyers about it. I was fortunate enough to meet Sylvia Kaminer, who is the director for Samantha Brown shows on PBS. Sylvia just finished a horror movie called Follow Her, which I liked a lot. And we agreed that the distribution part of making a movie sucks. She said that she took her movie to festivals and found that was a good way to proceed, and she sent to me a list of festivals which she would suggest, and I've started applying to them. So we're going to be going to festivals around the world. The first one I'm applying to is Fright Fest in London, and somewhere along the way we will get a decent distribution deal, and everybody will be able to see it.
Well, my last question for you that I'm asking artists like yourself this weekend is, what is one horror film and or franchise that has been a positive safe space or impact on your mental health?
How did you know I needed help with my mental health? I don't think there's anyone that has provided help for my mental health, although my favorite is Alien, so maybe that counts somehow, and I'm not aware of it. Okay.
Well, buddy, thank you so much for your time.
It's been my pleasure.
Mutilator 2, if you guys haven't catched The Mutilator, you guys can stream it on multiple platforms. Go to justwatch.com to find out. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure. Glad to be here.
Take two for Buffalo Bills House out of Perryopolis, Pennsylvania. I'm terrible with names.
Okay.
I'm here with Chris, the gentleman behind the project. Now, I interviewed you a couple years ago, so I know a couple of these stories.
Yep.
Tech issues happened, but tell us a little bit about this attraction.
Yeah, so Buffalo Bill's house is the real filming location where The Silence of the Lambs was filmed. Silence is predominantly a Pittsburgh shot film. Most of the movie was shot in that region. And the last 25, 30 minutes of Silence, the big climax was shot inside this house. This house went for sale about 3 years ago, and we purchased it with the sole intent to turn it into a movie-themed attraction. So it is essentially an Airbnb now that you can rent out. We rent it out regularly to guests up to 8. You get the whole home to yourself, just like a standard Airbnb format. You don't share rooms with any other parties. We also have a secondary format. We do guided tours from May through October of each year. Our first tours are Mother's Day weekend, and then we do Father's Day weekend and a number of others. And we're also offering up the house for on-location filming. My day job and the background you were asking about, I am an art director in the film business. I have been for about 20 years. Basically, I handle props and make things look good for film sets, and that was my inspiration to get involved with the house. Of course, being a huge horror fan didn't hurt, but it's been really awesome to see people's reactions to the experience that we're providing for people. This house has never been open to the public until we did it. The well has been built in the basement. It was built by in partnership with Tom Savini, a famous special effects makeup artist. His talented faculty and students at his school built the well for us. It's been cool, and honestly, we've had a lot of support from the horror, celebrity community. We've had Kane Hodder visit the house, Jason, Doug Bradley, Pinhead, Dan Roebuck from all of Rob Zombie's movies, and we even had our first music video shot at the house recently. The heavy metal band Taproot just filmed a single there, so it's been cool,
So this started out as a COVID project for you. What made you want to, and what inspired you to kind of go after and pursue this?
It did happen during, the world being on fire and the world shut down. And, truthfully, I found myself sitting home. The film business was greatly affected at that point in time. Therefore, I was essentially out of work, like a lot of people. That's when this house went for sale. Leaning on my skill set of building sets and making things look good was the inspiration for it, and that being a huge horror fan, too. When I went out and drove out to Pittsburgh to see the house for the first time, I knew it had the bones to do what I wanted to do. I just knew it would be the biggest project I've ever tackled in my entire life, and it was. It took over a year to renovate and get prepared and ready for opening, and we officially opened our doors Labor Day 2021. We're happy to say that, in the last couple years, we've hosted guests from 35 different states here in the United States and eight international countries. Our furthest guests have come all the way from Denmark, France, Germany, and the Netherlands. So it's really cool to see that Buffalo Bill's house and Silence of the Lambs still resonates with people 30 years later. And if you are a fan of thrillers or spooky movies or just filming locations in general, it is an absolute bucket list place to visit.
Can you talk about what the condition of the home was like when you first inherited it?
Oh, sure, yeah. So, upon seeing it, thankfully, we're actually only the fourth owners in the history of the home. The home is a Victorian home, specifically Queen Anne Victorian is the architectural style. Not a lot of homes like that left, especially in that region. All the woodwork is completely original. The marble is over a century old. The home is built in 1910, so it is 114 years old. Thankfully, all those owners really kept it in really great shape. There was some work to be done, nominal things that needed to happen to make it, the way we envisioned it. But the bones were all there. It did take about a year worth of minor renovations, painting, spackling, some electrical upgrades and stuff like that to get it all ready. And then we furnished it. The well took another year to do. We did open in 21. The well was open for Halloween season 2022 when we partnered with Tom Savini and his special effects school.
Well, I think one of my questions in terms of obviously people watching this right now may or may not know. Obviously it seems like you guys have kind of had a reputation that kind of took off. What does it look like if someone is looking to rent the Airbnb or kind of go through the guided tours financially?
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. All the pricing is available at buffalobillshouse.com. You do get the home completely to yourself for up to 8 guests. All pricing is listed there. You could find all the info. The thing is, we make it accessible for everybody. Most people do come in a group and split the cost accordingly amongst that group. It's really easy to do. We've been really blessed with having some killer reviews. We have over 160-something 5-star reviews on Google, and that weighs a lot for people who are deciding to, whether or not they want to visit. We're really appreciative of that. Most importantly, we're appreciative of the support of the film enthusiast community. doing these shows like this one. We go up and down the East Coast, out to the Midwest. The more and more people we meet, the more we get our word out, and we're certainly thankful for everyone who has taken the time to tour with us, stay with us, and we are also engaging in the on-location filming, so we're in talks with a new horror feature to potentially film in the fall of 2024. So if you are a film production company, horror or otherwise, and are looking for locations, Buffalo Bill's House is certainly available for that as well.
So my last question I'm going to ask people this weekend is, what is one horror film or horror property that has been a positive effect on your mental health?
Definitely. I'm a huge Halloween franchise guy. I love Michael Myers. I certainly have my Halloween 1 tattoo here, so you're a big Myers fan. And have been since I was a kid. So, years ago, long before Buffalo Bills, I never did a filming location vacation per se, but every time I went on vacation or I went somewhere far away, I would find out what was shot in this area, like what was filmed. So, of course, when I did Southern California years ago, I visited the Myers house and Freddy's house and all that as a horror fan. But that franchise, seeing, Southern California where the original Halloween was shot, the Myers house, the Strode house where Jamie Lee Curtis was, those were kind of iconic locations that stuck with me, and they were important to me growing up because I was such a Halloween fan. So seeing them in person definitely was always kind of inspirational to me. Definitely gave me some thoughts about how I wanted to navigate Buffalo Bill's House and, make it what it is today.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. Last question, of course, where can people find you? Follow the socials, find out more information.
Appreciate that. We're on all the social media platforms, Facebook, Buffalo Bill's House, Instagram at Buffalo Bill's House, TikTok and Twitter, we're at Buff Bill's House, BUFF Bill's House. You can also reach us at our website, of course, buffalobillshouse.com. You could book us right there on the website and also book tickets for your guided tour. And we encourage you to check us out, or else you'll get the hose again.
How would you guys like to help us get mental health resources into schools, conventions, and other events? Well, now you can. Simply go to patreon.com/victims and villains for as little as $1 a month. You guys can help us get mental health resources into current and upcoming generations, educate and break down stigma surrounding mental health, suicide, and depression. And you get exclusive content that you can't get anywhere else. And you guys can tell us which Nicolas Cage movie you want us to cover, and we'll do it. All it takes to get started is to go to patreon.com/victims and villains, or simply click the link in the episode description wherever you guys are currently listening or streaming this episode. Pick your tier and get started today. Yes, it's that simple. So quickly select the tier that you want and help us get hope into the hands of the depressed and the suicidal today. I am here with Bobby-Heckman. He is the writer-director behind the film Victim No More, which we talked about a couple years ago. And if you guys haven't seen Victim No More, go check it out, free on YouTube. But we're here talking about a different movie that he is the executive producer on today, and that is Screamwalkers. How are you doing?
We're doing fantastic. We're actually about to have the Screamwalkers premiere here at Creature Feature Weekend at 2 p.m. Saturday afternoon, and it's going to be awesome. We hope. The influence for Screamwalkers is all the shot on video 90s horror rip-offs that came after Scream. So it's kind of a mix of Scream and Stephen King's Sleepwalkers movie, which has its own little cult following. So you mash those two things up, you shoot it on it's analog horror, so it's shot on video. So it's 4x3, you rented this backyard movie from the video store back in the day, kind of thing. Yeah, it's gonna be great. There was a great cast. Some of that cast I'm going to be bringing over into Victim No More too. And yeah, it's going to be crazy. And there's a mummy in this movie too. So if that's any way of getting you to go see this movie, I mean, come on. Not many movies have a mummy in it, and that appears out of nowhere.
So let me get this straight. So it's got a found footage aspect to it, a little bit of a slasher influence, got a random mummy in it, and it's got a 90s vibe to it. Am I missing anything?
It's got some ancient Egyptian cat goddesses also thrown in there. Yeah, the goddess of fertility plays a part in it too. And B movie star who did Sasha Graham is in it, who did a lot of like J.R. Bookwalter movies. If you're familiar with his shot on video classics. Let's see what else. No, but it has a very kind of like flow and feel of like Scream movies, like that kind of like movie, until like things go bonkers and go off in different directions and twists and turns.
So obviously producing is a lot different than the writer-director hat, and even minor cameo that you had in Victim No More. But how did you get involved with this project?
Sean King, he was the cinematographer for Victim No More, and he wanted to bring, he's a fantastic cinematographer. He's very OCD, which I appreciate, and wants to get lighting and everything perfect and everything, like real setups for like shooting a 4K, great looking movie. But he wanted to take a step back and like do movies like that he was influenced by, with all the direct-to-video, shot-on-video movies of the 80s and 90s. He wanted to go back to that style when he was like a kid shooting things, at different locations and backyards and stuff with his buddies. So he's like, let's go back to doing something like that, but with like good actors, and we'll treat it like a real movie. but it's just going to come off like an old movie you found on like public access or something, back in the day. But yeah, I had kind of me and him kind of came up with a story, and a couple of other like friends. We came up with a story, and he got down and writing and directing it, and shooting it too, and shooting it on camcorders. And we would have our own problems with that. Some of those broke down. And we'd have to like try to figure out how to like fix them. And a lot of people that were involved in my film were involved in his film, and other filmmaker friends that he has got involved, and it was just a great experience. And we shot it last fall and premiering it today.
Awesome. Well, I haven't seen it yet, but you guys can stick out the podcast portion of this. You guys are currently listening to this on streaming, but I will have a review, spoiler-free, that you guys can check out, and we'll know if me and Bobby are still friends or not afterwards. But
always going to be friends.
Last question I gotta ask for you is developments on Victim No More. Where's the story going? You've been teasing it for a while. We've been following social media. Tell us a little bit about it.
I want to make actually 2 sequels to Victim No More and make it a trilogy, but I want each film to kind of stand on its own, but also and be a little different from each other. So, but also sequels to each other. So the second film that we're preparing, campaign starts September 13th this year. It's a Friday 13th, of course. And it'll be a Friday 13th anthology film. So it'll be 4 short stories with a wraparound story connecting it to the first movie. And it'll be, if you've seen the movie Victim No More, you see it ends with I don't want to spoil it, I guess. But it'll be about a group of survivors and their origins, basically, and like how they got to the point to the end of the movie of the first movie. So it'll be their backstories.
My last question for you: what is one horror movie and or horror franchise that has had a positive impact on your mental health?
Friday the 13th. Anytime I was, depressed or down in my younger years, I would put on Friday the 13th. It would make me smile. It would, all horror movies are always great to like escape to. I mean, all movies really in general are always a great escape. Like it just takes you out of your own life, and you get, emotionally attached to characters in other movies and situations, and you escape for a little while. And but Friday the 13th is always, those messages of like standing up against evil and stuff like that. I was always rooting for like the final girls or final boys in movies and in those movies, and taking down the bad guy at the end, even though he'll return in the sequel. But it's still, it was inspiring in a way. I know back then we didn't really look at it that we used to look like trashy horror movies, but like now you look back on those movies and you're saying like, oh, these were like strong characters. They gathered their shit together, and can I say shit? Okay. Stand up against evil and face adversity and their fears and try to conquer them by the end of the movie, and it can be just as inspiring as a superhero movie sometimes.
Well, Bobby, I thank you. Movies are called Screamwalkers and Victim No More. Check out Victim No More on YouTube. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, stick to the end of the video, and we'll link it here. Out of the theater reaction for Screamwalkers. This short film tells the story of a small town that is gripped with a series of murders with ties to Egyptian heritage, and I gotta say, this movie is a lot of fun. It is feels like it is purposely a throwback to 90s B movies, and like I would even say 80s. I know the filmmakers were having the intention of having this feel like it was a 90s film, but it definitely feels like it belongs in like also the conversation of like 80s direct-to-video sequels and slashers. First off, gotta say that the character design for the villain is incredibly slick. It allows for some really smart jokes and some really awesome, hilarious moments. And I know that the filmmakers probably meant it for it to be a nod to Scream, but it actually ends up becoming a nod to Scary Movie, the way that it plays out, and I think it's smarter for that because of this. This movie is not going to be for everyone. This movie is purposely over the top. It is schlocky, and it's part of the reason that I really had so much fun with it is because of its schlock. It knows what it wants to be, and it doubles down in that identity, and it's not trying to be anything it's not going to be. It's shot on analog, which really adds to the aesthetic and the feel of everything that they're going for. Again, I think that's a really smart decision, really awesome thing for them to endure, and it just looks really, really gnarly. I will say, though, the performances, because of the schlock, they really double down. Some of them are really good, some of them are really bad, and some of them are over the top, and they're so bad that they actually end up being good. I do want to highlight one performance in particular, and that is Elizabeth Duvall, who plays our main protagonist, CJ. She's really great in this. This movie doesn't have a whole lot of emotional foundations or emotional things that you really need to be, world-class, top-tier actor for, but the emotional portions that the film does have, because of having someone like Duvall in the role, it makes it so much better. And her performance really balanced between being like a capable actress of captivating emotions, or at least conveying them, on top of also being allowed to be over the top and schlocky, and they just balance it really well. I really love the use of humor in this. Pacing is kind of all over the place. If there's one thing that this film does wrong, it's pacing. There are portions of this film that feel like it has a nice steady pace, and then there are other portions of it that feel like it goes out a little bit too fast, or the reveals are a little bit too slow, and all of these other things. And I really wish it would have kept the majority of the beautiful pacing sticks within the first 30 minutes of the movie, and I really wish that, for this only being a 60-plus minute movie, I really wish that they would have kept that steady pace in the second half, but unfortunately, it's real hit or miss. So I really do ultimately end up really liking this film. If you get a chance to check it out, it's really fun. If you grew up on 80s B movies or even some of the 90s direct-to-video things, this is a perfect film for you. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 3.5 out of 5. Had a lot of fun with this.